Visitors, thanks for coming. Please be sure to sign in at the sign-in sheet at the back. If you wish to talk about something that's on the agenda, you can do so at that time. If you wish to talk about something that's not on the agenda, there's a general comments at the end of the meeting when you'll be allowed to speak. With that, Mr. Shemp, are there any additions or adjustments to the agenda?
Yeah, we just have a few. We've got Chris O'Brien's here and is going to talk a little bit about vaccination sites. We've got a field trip to add and 2 job descriptions to discuss in the miscellaneous packet that you should have.
Very well. So we'll move on to the approval of minutes from the previous February 17th regular meeting. They're in your packet. Are there questions or corrections for Mr. Shemp on those minutes? If there are none, do we have a motion to approve them as presented?
So moved.
Gina has made the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Kim. All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, now we'll approve the March 4th regular meeting, special session meeting, and the March 4th executive session meeting. Put those together. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections to those minutes? If there are none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Kim's made the motion.
I'll second it.
Seconded. And all those in favor? 6-5. All those abstaining? 1. Okay, move on to financial business, payroll and claims. Mr. Shemp?
Yeah, we don't have anything remarkable or out of the ordinary here in the payroll and claims. I would recommend that you approve them as presented.
Okay, are there questions on payroll and claims? If there are none, do we have a motion to approve them as presented?
So moved.
Brandy has made the motion.
A second.
Zach has seconded. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Financial reports, Mr. Shemp.
Similar situation with the financial report. We covered this in the retreat recently. You'll see we've got relatively a healthy balance in our education operation funds. If you look on page 33, you see those balances toward the top of the page.
Having a hard time hearing that.
So on page 33, toward the top of the page there, you'll see the balances for the education operation funds. I just wanted to point those out, that they're healthy. And I know we discussed them a little bit at the retreat recently, but we're a little over $2 million in the education fund, and the operations is almost $3.5 million. These fluctuate all throughout the year, and that is not the cash balance, that's just the operating balance.
Very well. Questions or comments on the financial reports? If there are none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Kim has made a motion.
I'll second.
Elise has seconded. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Okay, ECA reports.
Yeah, extracurricular reports are there in your packet, pages 45 through 47. Our balances are holding steadily as we've discussed a number of times. We're thankful for the great support of people coming out and watching games and keeping those balances in the black. It's greatly appreciated. There's been a lot to cheer for lately, and that's evidence there in that athletics fund. I would recommend that you approve them unless you have questions.
Questions or comments for Mr. Shemp? If there are none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Gina has made the motion.
I'll second.
Brandy with the second. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Utility report.
Right, in the utility report before you there, one of the items under Constellation Pro Alliance, if you look toward the bottom there, you see a larger number in comparison to last year. It's 3663 for February. On page 48, last column on the right, I went back and looked. There's a pretty significant temperature difference between those 2 years. I can't tell you the temps off the top of my head, but that would have to at least be part of the reason for that increase. Other than that, and some of our other conversations that we've had in the past about our utilities, not a whole lot remarkable or different at this point.
Okay, are there questions or comments on the utility report? Okay, there is no action required on that tonight, so we'll move on to requests and communications. I believe first up is Mr. Chris O'Brien to talk about possible vaccine clinic use of the schools, correct?
Yes. Hey, my name is Chris O'Brien. I'm the Emergency Management Agency Director. I'm working with our ambulance service to run our COVID vaccine clinic. We've been working at the fairgrounds, but unfortunately with the fair coming up this summer and some other stuff they have going on, we need to find another site. We'd like to use Turkey Run Elementary School, the gym, or the middle school, the ELC. So those would be, I believe you have the details. We'd like to, after the school ended, we want to work out the details with the school to make sure that there wouldn't be a scheduling problem with summer basketball or events that would take place in the ELC. And then there'd also be expected cost issues, overtime for custodial staff or something like that. We could work the details out. So we expect about 500 people every weekend, so Friday and Saturday, which is, when you think about it, it would be no more than 30 cars an hour. Kind of the best way to understand the flow. Are there any questions?
This is up later on the agenda, so if you have any questions for Mr. O'Brien, this would be the time to ask, because he may not be here at that point in time.
And I have email, you got my email and phone number if you have any questions. I was hoping to be up here tomorrow at the fence and look at the ELC. Be available, or is that what I?
Are there any questions, or anybody have any comments or have problems with this? It's gonna-
I'd like to comment. I've been able to participate in a couple of the clinics as a vaccinating NP, and you guys have done a phenomenal job getting it organized and getting people in and out. So I think when you say 30 an hour, like, we have times where people don't even sit down and wait. They're in and out. So if like crowding is an issue, I mean, I don't think it's going to be an issue. You've really done a very, very nice job for the amount of people that are getting vaccinated.
And I will second that. Very impressive. There's not a clinic, an office anywhere that has done a better job. I've also been out there giving vaccines, and well, she's done a phenomenal job, and those people should be thanked.
Okay, so it looks to me like later in miscellaneous business, that ought to be approved. That, so,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on requests and communications is KRM Architects is here to present on services that they could provide NCP.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you for inviting us to present and talk to you for just a short amount of time. We recognize that we are kicking off your spring break, so we want to be mindful of your time, and we appreciate the opportunity to like talk with you tonight. We are KRM Architecture. We have Mike Montgomery, who is this better? Is that better? Okay. I do have a projecting voice. This is Mike Montgomery. He's an architect and partner with KRM, and he has been leading our educational and community-based projects for nearly 40 years. Stuart Godfrey is to my left, and he is our educational thought leader, educational architect, and also partner with our firm. And then my name is Erin Jennings. I lead the interior design team with our team, and we really appreciate you allowing us to speak with you tonight.
So a lot of the work that we do, we focus on kind of two main things, craft and quality. So we think very carefully about how we approach every project we do and how we tailor our services specifically for the client and the opportunity that we have. We look for opportunities for innovation and cost-effective solutions that transform spaces for learning and for community engagement. We did spend a little bit of time looking at your website and trying to look and say, you know, how are we aligned potentially with the work that you're doing and the way that you think about providing education to students. So we've grabbed kind of 3 of your values from your website and looked at things that we do and things that sort of are kind of natural ways that we sort of fit together. So the first one we looked at was academic, physical, and emotional well-being of students. And we looked at, one of the things that we do is we look at how each space in the projects that we design support student learning and support student engagement and our collaboration opportunities between community, staff, students. The second one we looked at was the relationship between the school, parents, students, and community. And we believe it's really important that learning environments support those inner relationships and interactions between students, mentors, and that foster really rich community involvement. And then the final, third one we looked at was preparing students for the future. And we know that, a year ago we didn't, project what this year was going to be like, and we've all had to be very forward-thinking and creative in how we approach delivery of academics and support of our students and our teachers. Those are things that we just recognize. The academic world and the world that students are entering into are changing pretty quickly. So how do our spaces that we design foster that engagement in that? That's really something we focus on intensely.
And as we've talked with Mr. Schimpf twice now, and he's been very generous in getting us ready for tonight to meet with you, and so we understand as well as possible the things that you'd like to try and accomplish. And this is just kind of a highlight of the things that we've learned. There's more than this, but these are the ones that kind of rose to the top. An analysis corporation-wide for your overall needs. And we always believe this is a good idea because you kind of take the blinders off for a little bit and evaluate all your needs, and then you start prioritizing, but don't off the bat, don't put a lot of brakes on things until you really have done a good analysis. And those include, potentially an updated high school gym and weight room. We know you have some drainage issues by the bus barn close to the high school. Overall, corporation-wide and HVAC improvement analysis is warranted. And there's been discussion about an auto tech and an ag facility, which we have some experience in both of those types in addition to K-12. And then tennis courts. We've done a ton of tennis courts, and we can help you with those. So these were just some of the highlights from our discussions with Mr. Schimpf. And then also in understanding this, you do have a timeline and that we are after talking it over. It seems very logical and accomplishable, starting in September, maybe with some of the tennis and site removal type things, and working all the way through 2024. And we understand some of this has to do with potential tax rates and balancing out the burden on the taxpayers. And that's very typical to plan projects so that they don't put any more burden on taxpayers than necessary, and find good ways to develop cost competitive implementation of these projects. We brought along, just in case we get into some question and answer with you, some where your schools are at. So if you want to point at a site plan, we can come back to those.
Before we leave some time for a Q&A, because we think that that's the most important part of this discussion, is that we wanted to share just kind of what we would suggest that our next steps would be and how we might be able to help. So we understand that there's probably a need for a comprehensive facility plan and study. We've spoken with Mr. Schimpf about that specifically. Our team would approach that in kind of 4 different buckets or 4 different areas. So definitely an evaluation of your existing facilities, an assessment of the overall kind of existing conditions, and then really understanding what the future needs of the school corporation would be, and that includes really a deep dive conversation with you as a board, the administration, the educators, and the students in the community. And then develop what the plan is moving forward into the future. So what best practices and evidence-based design can we bring to you from a lot of the educational design that our team brings in experience? We work in very rural communities. We would say that the majority of our educational work and design is in the rural community environment. We feel that would be of high value in learning from what our experience has been in those studies is important insight and intel for your process. And then looking at potential system and building upgrades, what does that mean, and incorporating those appropriate kind of configurations. And then finally, that shifts us into what would be a cost assessment and an overall comprehensive analysis for you to make the best educated decisions moving forward for your overall facilities. And that really establishes kind of an overall high-level roadmap that gives you all the information to be able to move forward. So we did bring some examples of previous projects that we've worked on, and we were going to use those images in case some questions came up, but we'll leave this time open now for Q&A.
What'd you say the last statement? I didn't hear that.
And I'm sorry if it was hard to hear through my mask. We did bring some most recent educational work that we've completed, so we do have some images. We were going to wait until Q&A to share those images, or we can share them now if that's something that you would like to see.
Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask? That's what you're looking for, right? Questions
Yes.
right now?
Yeah, we would leave it open for questions, dialogue. Any questions for us?
Any close area schools that you've worked on? I mean, you said rural, anything we would maybe know?
So our closest schools currently, we're working with Bloomfield School District. We're also working with Greencastle Schools. So those are probably the closest. Here in the community, we're actually working with the library. We've been working with the library on an assessment and a study that was completed 3 years ago. And we have been in communication with the library just on general building needs and upgrades. It's nothing architectural at this point.
Okay, any other questions?
What are some things that rise to the top for you as you think about your facilities? What are some things that maybe keep you up at night when you think about where you're heading and what, you know, your current building stock and your current state of systems and those kind of things are? Do you have some things that are key for you guys?
It's a good question. I think we've kind of recognized that the top of our list is, you know, the VOTEC building. It's been on our radar for a while. But with that comes, I think, a number of challenges is where, what does that mean for another domino such as tennis courts? What does that mean for football practice field? What does that mean for, you know, a number of things? You know, the high school campus here is really landlocked. I mean, there's very little parking, and it's really stuck. So what's the best use of our space going forward here as we, you know, as the first domino would fall, as we kind of get a plan to move forward? You know, we're just, you know, 6 years into North Central Park and a couple years into Park Heritage. So we haven't had a lot of our time has been dedicated to getting our schools together and not dedicated towards looking towards, you know, facilities everywhere. And some of it is that our enrollment had been falling up until this year, and so that pause button a little bit on some things. But I mean, I think we've kind of highlighted that the VOTEC is our number one. It's just where, what, and we don't want to do it so that we're stepping on the toes of something else.
Right. You want to make sure you've got the end in mind so that you don't move something here early and mess other opportunities up.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And
One of the other things I think that we've talked about is that we are very, only a couple of years into the consolidation, and we have repurposed a lot of buildings, a lot of space. Maybe that's not the best. Maybe there's a better way that we could repurpose that and use it to accommodate, like Scott said, we're landlocked here, but we have other space, other places, and what's the best?
and most economical and safest, and, you know, all the factors that factor into when you do things.
Well, we have left a couple of example studies with Mr. Schimpf, as well as some flash drives with documents for each of you to be able to look through. And kind of what you're describing was one of the examples for Hamilton Heights School Corporation. They were looking at the question of, you know, do we have too much space for what we need, with the recognition that, you know, every square foot of space costs X number of operational dollars every single year, which, you know, gets away from the money you can spend on student and learning and different activities. So the result of that study was actually that they ended up, which obviously probably wouldn't work in this case, but in their case, it functioned that they're actually tearing down part of one of their buildings. They've consolidated, reconfigured their grade levels so that they can take one of their buildings offline, which then just directly, you know, puts money into student activities and into students. So that's, you know, those are all things that we didn't start out thinking that's where we were going to end up. We started out just like this describes, looking at the buildings, assessing what could be, and then you just start asking questions and you get creative. And that's one of the things that we feel strongly about, that we have to really get to understand what your needs are and what the opportunities are, and then we can propose, well, what if we do try this, or what if that? And, you know, the idea being you don't want to locate a tech, you know, an auto tech program in a spot that might, you know, be better served for another function in the future. So we try to vet all that stuff out in the planning process before it becomes really expensive to change.
How long does your planning process typically take, like once you do the assessment, like what's a?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really depends on what state the buildings are in currently, how much change the board or the school administration is anticipating. We really tailor our services to our clients. So sometimes clients want to take their time, they want to study a lot of options. Sometimes clients just want to go, and we can adapt to both. So we can do them really fast, or we could stretch them out.
To give you an example, just at Greencastle, because we just finished that study in January, we started that in September, so it was a 4-month process. And we didn't know what that process was going to be like. And, you know, if you would, the next step really would be, if you're interested, to ask us for a proposal. Then we would take literally a few weeks working with Mr. Schimpf to go back and forth. Okay, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want in our proposal? What information do you want? So just the proposal development process is really customizing it to the way that you get the most benefit from. In their particular case, we looked at mechanical systems, we looked at square footage, like Stuart mentioned, we looked at roofing, we looked at everything, and literally came up with a list of 78 items that they thought would be valuable to do, and had a cost estimate for each one of those. And then the administration went through and prioritized those from 1 through 78, because they didn't know how much money they wanted to spend, but it helped them a lot to understand, oh, if we build a secure entrance at Ridpath Elementary School, it's going to cost $80,000. They didn't know that before. So the whole study process becomes a real educational tool for all of you, so you can start prioritizing in your mind when you have conversations with your financial consultants, and, you know, start talking about taxes. So that was a big benefit to them, to start understanding how much things cost, as well as prioritizing those costs.
Okay, are there other questions? Okay. I think that's,
So you had a few slides yet that you were going to show,
oh,
is
did you have
that
some more slides?
correct?
We do have some project
Okay.
images, and this is included on your flash
Sure.
drives too. And we'll just kind of go through this quickly. But, you know, we have extensive experience in athletic fields and athletic upgrades, and we understand that there's some need for that. Most recently, as Stuart mentioned, with Hamilton Heights, they have a pretty robust agriculture and engineering program at their high school, and so while maybe first impression is that there's a little bit of flashiness to what you see in this photograph, we wanted to take an opportunity to share that this was actually a pretty extensive major renovation project, and it allowed us the opportunity to really start pulling pieces of the existing building out to become teaching tools to the students and to the teachers. So you'll notice overhead up above that some of the sprinkler pipes and some of the conduits for the electrical, they're all color coded, and it was important that we left the infrastructure exposed and were able to identify that representative of what the program the students were wanting to learn and explore.
Since this project was completed, they have identified community partnerships that are now providing paid internships to students in ag and construction technology, and it's been really successful for them.
This is just another example of an opportunity where we built different construction walls, construction methods, and left them exposed so that the students could understand how buildings, facilities, and kind of their engineering work, design work starts to come together in terms of that building technology, that construction technology. We know that there's maybe some desire to have a conversation around what a new gym can provide to the school and also to the community. We have engaged in a lot of conversations that have been centered around wellness and fitness opportunities and services that are provided to the community that really get community buy-in for it just not being another athletic facility, but really that community investment.
These spaces also become opportunities to do things like reduce how late students are practicing. So you go from a practice that might end to 9, but if you coordinate the facilities, maybe they get to end at 8, which is obviously better for students. So we're thinking about all those things as well as how do we make it cool and not cost a lot. But those are all things. And then this is an elevated space, which is a workout room, which is then available to the community. So we're always trying to find these double duty and triple duty partnerships and opportunities within the space.
It's probably important, again, to remind as you go through these slides here, we're looking at strategic planning long-term, right? So anything mentioned doesn't necessarily mean that tomorrow we're breaking ground, right? That's not what's going on here. We're trying to figure out what our possibilities are, and we want to put dreams down on a sheet and figure out if dreams match up with the finances.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
vision of the community.
Yeah, and go through the process of extracting the data during that study. So that, when you go through the comprehensive study and that facility assessment and analysis, that helps justify a lot of the decisions longer term, either one way or another. And then this will end with this slide, but we were pretty proud of the ribbon cutting that we had a state-of-the-art greenhouse project with Hamilton Heights, and it was to support that robust agriculture program that they are implementing there, and so we really cherish the opportunity to be able to work on these types of projects and to work in these processes with people like you. We really cherish the relationships that we build along the way. So it's critically important to us at the very beginning where we are now and all the way through when we get to this stage and beyond. So thank you for your time tonight.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much for coming. That was very enjoyable and very informative. And
Thank you so
we
much.
appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to the personnel report. We have a maternity leave.
Actually, sorry.
Oh, I skipped Mr. Schultz. I'm sorry. I was going right past, sorry. Mr. Schultz will present on some topics in the middle school.
All right. Thank you so much for letting me talk tonight. 2 years ago when we did this, I had a nice presentation with pictures and slides and videos and whatnot. I'm tired. I couldn't do that for you this time. But I did I guess, ask my staff what they felt were the awesome things going on at the middle school this year. As you know, this has not been an easy year for any of our schools, but I just want to say our teachers, our staff members, our students are just awesome. Overwhelmingly, it said that our students would rather be in school than be home e-learning. Okay, so you would think that given the opportunity to stay home, even for that 1 week that we had of e-learning, they really didn't like it. They would rather be with their peers, with their teachers, which shows their adaptability. Our students adapted. They're resilient. They've bounced back. Yeah, they may have fell behind just a little bit. They're bouncing back. And that's to the credit of our teachers. They're being flexible. We've used the word grace a lot through the pandemic, through last spring, all the way through this year. We've learned to, we've just learned to extend lots of grace to our students, but we still have high expectations. And our students are resilient, so are our teachers. Now, our teachers are juggling in-person lessons, Canvas, making sure our absent students are getting what they need. It takes a lot of time, and they're doing a great job. But our teachers are finding ways to implement new projects, projects about the solar system. We had a big volcano unit in 8th grade science, historical interviews in 8th grade social studies. So lots of neat new things being done each and every day. Part of that is because of our professional development, our project-based learning or phenomenon-based learning, where we are connecting with an educator in Finland. And it's a little bit of work. Well, I take that back. It's a lot of bit of work for some of our teachers, but they're learning how to collaborate. They're improving their differentiation skills. We're learning to do new projects to keep students interested, getting away from our traditional sit and get. So nobody likes to be lectured to or lectured at every single day. This is really opening up some new doors to our students and teachers. Some of our changes were COVID related. Okay, so we had a lot of new procedures at the beginning of our school year, and it was a tough adjustment for not only students but also staff. But we found out some of these things we're going to keep even when the pandemic leaves us. Lunch, okay? Lunch, we moved our lunch to our ELC, and at first I thought, I don't know how this is going to work. We love it. We absolutely love it. It's quieter, there's less drama, it's just more controlled. The downfall is we don't get to do our lunch ball anymore, and we're going to figure out a way to do that, next year again. We have staggered passing periods, and at first it was annoying with bells ringing, but it's cut down on kids being tardy to class, less kids in the hallway, so I think overwhelmingly, I think we're going to keep that for next year. We kind of like that. Teachers are more apt to go outside. We were really encouraged them to get out of the classroom, get the fresh air, but that's something that, even now as, the pandemic is hopefully, leaving us, but they're still going outside, not just for free time, but for educational purposes. They'll conduct their classes, on the front steps or over by the baseball field or softball field. So that's been a great change. Kids are active. They need that change. Our teachers, both teachers and students, are getting fantastic reviews of Canvas. At first they hated it, but the teachers are doing such a great job of putting all of their lessons and homework on Canvas. It's easy. We have a very uniform way that students can get to every lesson, every homework assignment the same way, which has really helped our parents when they say, well, Canvas is confusing, and when we just say, have them show you the calendar, and they're like, oh, that's what they're supposed to be doing. And it's been a great, great change and a great asset to our building. Bus loading and unloading, I mean, that sounds simple, but it can be very anxious. And due to COVID, we have a new system, and it's been working great. We love it. Even with COVID, all of our athletics and our activities have been able to go on. We've had to make a lot of adjustments, but we are so happy that the kids have been able to participate. FFA is just extremely active. They have an officer team. They've done 2 competitive events so far and raised money to donate $300 to St. Jude's Hospital. Our drama department, they are in the process of rehearsing for their 2nd production for this year, which is normally not done, but our fall production was left over from the canceled COVID production. We participated in the art show that was in conjunction with a high school play, and had a great showing. Some teachers are really enjoying being able to teach additional courses. Sometimes, some of them would rather just teach 1 grade level, but we have others like, oh, that gives me some variety in the day. Our SROs are absolutely awesome. We love the partnership with Park County Sheriff, and they're just wonderful to have in our school. We have a great partnership also with Rockville Christian Church, who provide our buddy bags every Friday. And we just, we know that there's so much hardship in our community, and we just love that these kids can take home a bag of food every Friday. In addition to teachers and other staff members helping out, at Christmas time with Christmas sponsorship. They buy school supplies for the kids, food. We're just, they're a very giving group of adults. Today it was really neat. I had to snap a picture during our dodgeball tournament, and I have a student who had a very rough entrance to middle school this fall. It was tough to get him to school. Today, having him out on a dodgeball team, having a blast, he is now just loving middle school. So I snapped a picture, sent it to his guardian, and I just said, I can't believe the difference. And it takes a village, and that's what we have up at the middle school. Yes, we're tired. Yes, our teachers work really, really hard. Our students are doing a great job. So there's probably more awesome things that are going on that have slipped my mind. But does anybody have any questions about anything that we're doing at the middle school?
Question for Mr. Schultz? No, this is sort of double duty for you coming right off the retreat there. We got to hear
Yep.
some of the stuff. But does anybody? Okay, we're good.
Sounds good. All right, thanks.
Thanks for
Have
coming.
a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to go into the personnel report. And we have a maternity leave, Mr. Shemp?
Yeah, Brittany Hill is requesting a maternity leave to begin approximately May 3rd through May 26, 2021. She'll use sick personal doc days during her time off based upon the board's approval. And I would recommend that you approve this leave.
Very well. Are there any questions or comments on this? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Brandy has made the motion.
Second.
Kim with the second. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Okay, straightening up the girls' basketball coaches
Yeah,
from
for the
last year.
second time here, and I hate that, but for the second time, we're trying to straighten up these pays, and we want to get them to the right people in the right people's hands. So at our last regular session, there was an approval to split pay between 3 individuals for girls' basketball coaching, high school varsity, high school positions. The information that was sent was incorrect, so I'm sorry. Apologize. That information that I passed to you was incorrect. The pay should have been split evenly between 2 individuals, both Chelsea Leonard and Rachel Luft. Jordan Davies, who was previously approved for payment, served in a voluntary role, and that's all according to the head coach. And he has spoken with the athletic director, and they have shared this with me. So we're trying to rectify that at this point.
Very well. Are there questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Kim's made the motion.
I'll second it.
Elise with the second. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. All right, there is no old business tonight, so let's move on to new business. We have some donations. We're very thankful for those. Does anybody have any questions or comments on them? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Brandy's made the motion. Seconded by Zach. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Okay, field trips. The FFA field trip, Mr. Shemp?
Yeah, time is of the essence on some of these, and with field trips, certain things have been virtual and then gone back to in-person. There was short notice here, and I signed off for the FFA to attend a field trip to Cloverdale Middle School for an area competition, and I would not typically do it in that order, but I knew that they would miss it based upon when our next board meeting was, so I went ahead and signed off for that, and so I'm asking for approval in afterwards, I guess, at this point.
Okay, we're probably not going to say no, so then we have a motion to approve this.
We wanted the
is-
kids to get to compete, and we wanted them to get to be there in person.
Gina with the second.
Yeah.
All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Okay, another field trip to the zoo.
Yeah, we've got a couple others here. So Diane Shelton is requesting a field trip to the Indianapolis Zoo as part of the Biology 2 class. She does tie in part of her curriculum here, and so it's not just a visitation entirely to the zoo like you might have in the elementary level. So there's a tie-in there. The students would travel on April 30th, and I would recommend the board approve this request. If you want additional details, there was the field trip request form in your packet there.
Okay, are there questions or comments? By the way, I think it's very nice to actually have field trips and events again, so that's a big positive. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Zach has made the motion.
I'll second.
Brandy with the second. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Okay, National Honor Society trips to the state park, Mr. Schimpf?
Yes, Ron Alabaugh and Jane McMullen would like to take the National Honor Society to Turkey Run State Park for a day of cleaning in celebration of Earth Day on April 22nd. I think this is great, and so I would recommend that the board approve that as well. The details, again, are in your packet there.
Questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Elise has made the motion.
Second.
Gina with the second. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Okay, a couple transfers.
Yeah, excuse me, we actually had one more on this list that was added just today, and so I wanted to go ahead and add him in there as well if possible. But we had one kindergartner from Southwest Park that's going to Turkey Run Elementary, a 5th grader from Vigo County Schools that's going to Turkey Run Elementary, and a 10th grader from Vigo County Schools that's going to Park Heritage High School. And I just present that to you as part of the packet so you can see the ins and the outs. And obviously, we want to approve them.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Brandy with the motion. Seconded by Kim. All those in favor? 6-0 vote. Okay, graduation.
Okay, we've been around a little bit here with graduation. This past year with COVID-19, we held graduation outdoors. I think everyone's aware of that. It was out there on the football field here at the high school. After that happened, I heard a lot of positives from people within the high school. And since then, I've heard from many of them saying that they'd like to still have it at the high school. I don't know if the board entirely wants to approve where graduation is or isn't held. It's absolutely up to the board to make that determination. What I've gathered is that Mr. Ashley has spoken with the class officers that are graduating this year. They've said they would prefer it to be outside. Now, we know there are shortcomings to going outside because of weather could interrupt it at any point. But it's hard to go against it if that's what the kids want and they want to give it a try again. I'm not necessarily against that. We just have to have a solid backup plan. And I've had a couple of those ideas that have been floated around. And as far as the board's concerned, I would be interested to hear what sort of backup plans you might think are best, because there may be one out there that I've not come up with yet. So the notion is we'd like to have the graduation at 4 p.m., May 29th, that's Saturday. The backup could be any number of things. I think there's something to be said for having it at the same time of day, if at all possible. The only way probably to have it at the same time of day, if you have a thunderstorm roll in at a half hour before, would probably be to come over to the high school or somewhere within walking distance for the students. But I wanted to bring that conversation up to the board to sort of get your input and see if you have strong feelings one way or the other, that you'd like to see it a different way. There is the side that if you wanted to, you could say it could be at Park Heritage Middle School, and you could have it on the stage there like it was the first year. So we're just having 2 years with graduating classes here, and last year being what it was with an outdoor because of spacing and everything else. Currently, it's the CDC is still, they have some recommendation out there. They'd still like to see us do things outside. I'm not sure how much that's going to relax by then. So we take it under consideration, but it makes sense to me to try to do what the students would like to have happen. It worked well outside. Does anyone have
I'm going
views
to
on
comment,
that?
then I'm going to go. I mean, I just make sure that, I'm all for doing what the students want. I honestly don't care. I just don't want them, I want it to be a day to remember, not a day not to remember, right? Because everybody can always talk, you know, you can have certain things go on to where it could be a really bad day. I'm fine with whatever they want to do. I would just, if they have a backup plan, I would make the decision earlier. If they want to have it on the football field, fine, but make the decision the night before so that people aren't setting up two different places. That would be all my deal. If they want to have it, that's okay. I mean, that's their choice, but you certainly don't want to get in a bad situation, you know. That's all I've got to say. I got to go. Congratulations to the dance team, and go Wolves this Saturday, all right?
Thank you.
Good luck, yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any comments?
Well, I guess I do. I'm kind of worried about the backup plan. So if we allow them to have the graduation on the football field, then as our backup plan to have it here at the high school, I mean, I know we don't know yet, but I'm afraid that this gym here is not big enough to hold all
Right.
of the people that might be attending, especially if COVID's still a thing and you still have to distance 3 feet apart. I mean, that's a concern of mine.
But if we, because they are getting better at the weather forecasting, I mean, we can almost rely on, especially closer. And like Scott said, if we do it the night before, if you make the final call, I mean, and, you know, even if we ask for volunteers in this community, we'll have 200 people show up and help us move equipment. I mean, that's all it would take to go if we decided that here wasn't big enough, we needed to go up to the middle school, you know, we'd have flatbeds and trucks and it would all be up there in an hour. You know, so if that's what the kids want, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm all for whatever the kids and the principal wants. I honestly, I don't think that I should be in the position to tell the principal where to have graduation. I think it should be at the high school. I think the backup plan should be at the high school. I think sitting in this gym here with I assume the students would be sitting in chairs on the actual gym floor. I'd also say, I mean, I'd imagine people are still going to be having to wear masks, and so social distancing being one thing, but also having to wear masks, but also that grandparent or guardian that might be more nervous to come inside, they'd have to maybe make the tough decision to not come inside or stream it in another capacity in maybe this room with extra seating. But the weather's not a huge issue to me. We play baseball games outside, and you know every single one of them is scheduled outside. My DePaul University graduation was outside, and it was really hot. That's what I remember. But if it was up to me, I would leave it 100% up to the principal and the students. I wouldn't feel right or even comfortable telling the senior class where they can have graduation.
Do the kids have a preferred backup plan?
I've not heard that the kids have a preferred backup plan, no. I think there's an advantage to saying it's at 4 o'clock on Saturday, the 29th, and if it's raining, you're inside, and if it's not, you're outside. I think there's an advantage to that as opposed to people who've traveled from far away coming in Sunday afternoon. Maybe somebody's already got their party planned at that point, or, you know, all those things that happen. There's some value in having a concrete time. But absolutely, that's where I've been coming from too, Zach, is the idea that the principal and the students, they have those conversations, and no, they've not given me a preferred backup. They have strong hopes of it coming together, you know, just like you would any other outdoor activity that you set a date for. So.
And I mean, I would agree with everybody else. I'm fine with having it outside, and them just having a backup plan. But I agree with you. I don't think the COVID restrictions are going to be that much different come May. So the backup plan needs to take that into consideration. And so I don't think we're going to be able to just move everybody into the high school gym.
Well, and I don't have the count off the top of my head, and I should, but I can't tell you the number of seats available in there, but I think it's an ample number that if you had each student that had 6 people, I think you'd be somewhere between 4 and 6, and we'd have to look at it, I think, just like we did back at the beginning of all this, to say how many people can we reasonably put in the space and feel comfortable within the guidelines, and then go from there. And some of that's going to be the hard decisions. If they go inside, you may have a grandparent that.
So I agree with everybody else. I think it's up to the kids and the administration. I think that earlier deciding is a better plan. Keeping the same time is a better plan. And I agree having it here for the backup plan, but with the limitations of the size. So I don't know what you do, whether you give the kids tickets. If it has to come inside, then you have a white ticket, you go to the gym, you have a blue ticket, you go to the media room, you have a green ticket, you go to the library and have it streamed. That's up to them. I think that we need to make sure, though, that we have space, because when you say you're going to have it outside, you might have a lot of people in the family that want to come. Well, what happens if there wasn't supposed to be a thunderstorm, but there is, and we decide to move it inside at the last minute?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got 10 people instead of the 2 you were counting on.
Right.
You need to have a space for them to be able to see it.
I'd like to count on them to come up with that strong backup plan. They've had to deal with these things all year and have done a great job adjusting and flexing along the way. I mean, they really have, and I know that Rich will surely be involved in that too, because this is so much like prepping for any big competition where you've got a number of spectators. We've got people who can put a good plan together. We just have to have one in place, and they're in need of that concrete time to get their invites out, because we need Herf Jones to have that information so they can send it out. And so really I wanted to bring it up tonight so that we could say, yes, we ideally feel good about a time and a location, and then as far as a backup plan, we can put that together. Or I can ask Dwight and others to do that.
So do you need a motion from us?
I don't believe we need a motion.
That's what I thought. Okay, I think you have our support. And
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so recommendation of transfer of funds from the rainy day fund to the 800 cafeteria account?
Yeah, we've been talking about this one for a while. The recommendation is to transfer funds from rainy day to the 0800 cafeteria account. After the recent audit, we were notified that a corrective action should be taken in bringing the cafeteria fund to a 0 balance. In consideration of this, I'm presenting a resolution to the board to address this imbalance or negative balance. The resolution states that $38,546.11 will be transferred from rainy day to the cafeteria fund. The pandemic was hard on us and the fund. At the same time, we've cut some costs early on, but we had to add staffing then. So those expenses came right back with a couple people. As Mr. Schultz mentioned, we have the LC room that's being used. We had to have some more staffing there to be able to use the register at that space, and it took a couple extra people in cleaning a different space. So there was a little bit more expense there, but that's not the whole situation here. Our account has been in the negative, and we need to look for some options as far as how to address that best into the future. And those points will need to be brought up for future discussions. Essentially, right now, due to the audit, we need to balance the books, and that requires a payment from rainy day.
Does this include like unpaid lunch balances, or this is all like our expenses to have the program?
These are all of our expenses right now, as far as where we're at in the negative. And in all honesty, what will happen based upon the trend, next month we will be in the negative again, based upon the trend. And so what we had been waiting for was the USDA has extended free meals all the way into September, which means we are getting some reimbursement for all of those meals. But if students are not eating those meals, we're still not working our way back into the black yet. The anticipation back in January was by June, we might break even if things work right. And we were of an understanding that it was okay to let that balance work its way back towards the positive. The auditors said it needed to be zeroed out. So that's why we have to zero out now, even though next month it's likely it will be in the negative again. And it's a problem. And
So how often are they wanting us to keep it? Like I mean, what's a reasonable?
I don't think they said every month. Okay, so by June 30th, it has to be in the black was the answer there. But as far as having to do it monthly or not, I didn't remember, and Scott was there as well for the audit review. I didn't remember them saying how often. They just said you need to do it at this point to show that you've recognized it, so to speak.
So if the kids don't get a lunch or they don't pull a tray, then that affects our reimbursement, or we get reimbursed no matter what?
If the kids don't take a lunch, yes, that absolutely affects us, right?
I think we kind of discussed this at the retreat also, and some thoughts about what we might do to
Right.
change it. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Gina for the motion,
A second.
Zach for the second. All those in favor? 5-0. All those opposed, obviously, are 0. Okay, recommendation to approve incentives for corporation bus drivers.
Finding enough bus drivers has been a struggle for us. And we've had put out for bids this past year, and we were fortunate enough to have a few different contractors bid for us. And Tim Spicer, God rest his soul, he put in for 11 routes. His family's going to run the company. They're still going to own up to those 11 routes, and we appreciate and have a good partnership there still. But we've got to find some bus drivers, and we may be looking at using corporation buses for those routes. I know I had a good message from Terry earlier that we may have another driver. I know that Karen has been working hard at every person that walks in the door at central office. I think she asks if they might want to be a bus driver, and we're making progress, we feel like, but we don't have everybody signed up entirely at this point. So what I'm trying to do is come up with an incentive. And so the incentive that I would propose to the board, just to get your approval ideally, would be that the corporation drivers and appropriate CDL, those who have an appropriate CDL license for the 21-22 school year would receive a sign-on bonus of $750. That would be payable September 1st, 2021, with a one-year commitment. This would include current employees. So if we have an employee who has their CDL, what that means is if a current bus driver, they would also get $750. That's in some ways a thank you for their service. It's other ways recognition that they could go next door and drive other kids down the road. We appreciate them and we want to keep them here, and I would like for them to get the same benefit. The addition to that would be the individuals willing to obtain licensing will receive pay of $15 an hour for 30 hours of training. They would also get a $750 sign-on bonus September 1st with a one-year commitment. The total cost of the classes could be as high as $1,500. I had put, as I've researched this more, 500 was a low estimate. I had 500 in mind. It was a low estimate. The hours, you're going to do 30 hours of driving. That's your minimum, and you're probably going to pay somebody to be there while you're doing the driving. So in addition to that $15 an hour that we would be paying someone being trained, there's another $15 an hour going to the trainer. At the same time, we've got to get kids down the road, and we've got to have some sort of incentive in place. And we've got some decent feedback as far as I'm trying to talk to people and say, hey, what would it, what would interest you? And because we have some people who could take on this responsibility if they really wanted to. But it's a hard job. It's a tough job. So my hope would be that if you want, I can run through those numbers again if you would like. but if not, I would ask the board to approve this incentive, and then we could start advertising it.
So how many corporation drivers do we need?
We need 3.
And we have how many?
We only have 1 corporation driver at this time. Right? Right, right.
So I think this is a good place to start. I mean, even if we get some interest, it would at least open the conversation, like if somebody has another need or, you know, whatever. Because we talked about a meeting or 2 ago that for one had an aide position and then she drove on each side of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there were some other, but for me, I think this is a good place to start and hopefully we could get some interest.
Any other comments? Motion?
So moved.
Motion by Brandy
I'll second it.
and second by Elise. All those in favor? 5-0 vote. Posting of new positions.
Okay, again, at the board retreat, we talked about the ESSER 2 funding, which is the second round of stimulus dollars. Just to give you a quick overview there, there are still $279,000 roughly in our initial stimulus dollars in the CARES Act. Yes, those are all earmarked within reason, but some of our estimates of where we would spend are lower. There are a couple that are higher, but most of them are lower. And so we still have those dollars to spend. ESSER 2, I had a webinar just today and got some additional details. We can spend on new staffing if we choose to do so. A lot of schools are doing that. With that in mind, what I would like to do is be able to post positions as soon as possible. And I've got a number of positions here. Each of these on your list, and I'll read them all out loud. Each of these on your list I've discussed with the association just to let them know these are things we're looking at. The stimulus dollars will go until September 30th, 2023. That's when they have to be spent. Currently, there's an inclination that even the third stimulus will need to be spent by then. To give you an idea, the second stimulus total dollars were projected at 1.38 million plus. The third stimulus may be as high as 10 times the initial CARES Act, which was $300,000. So that's almost $3 million on top of the $1.38 million. We need to spend this on staffing. We need to get more good people with kids. And so these positions may not be the last ones that I'm going to bring before you right now, but I'd like to get these posted and us to start making some progress with your approval. And so a special education position at Park Heritage Middle School, a special education aide at Park Heritage Middle School, 2 additional elementary teachers, that's in the 4th and 5th grade at Rockville Elementary. And granted, some of these things may change. You may have a 3rd grade teacher who says, gosh, I'd really like to teach 4th grade. And so we end up with an elementary position is what we're really posting for. And we also have, situations where if we need to decrease the number of staff in a certain position, we have got one grade level that's smaller than another, then we have to still adjust that. But if we don't post for the positions, we're not going to find the people. So we really need to get them posted. And the others would be speech language pathologist. I'm thrilled to say I've already talked to one, and she sounds like she might be a great fit. And there's an opportunity there, I think, for us. And when I say I already talked to one, I know that we've got dollars from the original CARES Act, and so I know for those of you that are new, that was one of the things that we put into the original CARES Act was to have additional SLP hours. And so I was already looking at I could use those dollars if we had to, if we didn't get approved. The next position is a data specialist / curriculum integrator. We have a ton of great things going on. We have a lot of really great technology. We don't have all the glue that we need to put those pieces together. We've got fantastic pieces. We just need to get the glue in there to make those work as efficiently as possible. I've had discussions with Jana Kreitz, Rebecca Corey, Carmen, Jenny Benjamin, Kristen Roberts, you name it, and they recognize this need. It's a harder one to explain what it looks like, and I've got a job description later on in the miscellaneous business for this position for you to look at as well. But I think it's important at least for the next couple of years. I do think it's a position that it might be in 2 years you don't have this position any longer. It might be in 2 years that that's the absolute best position we added. We don't entirely know until we get the right individual in place. The last position right now that I'm looking at is additional agriculture teacher at the high school. As we look at precision ag, increasing our opportunities for students, we have a number of students interested in agriculture. There are great work opportunities here, and if kids have an interest in it, then I'm all for increasing the staffing. We have the dollars right now. So if you have any questions on any of those, be happy to answer them.
I did on the data specialist. I mean, I'm fine with all the teachers. This one, I have the data specialist curriculum integrator was where I had some concerns. I guess reading the job description, to me, I feel like this is what teachers do, and adding somebody, I mean, I just kind of felt like the way it was described, it was going to be somebody who was going to look at their data to tell them what to do, which I feel like they're in the best place to look at their kids' data and come up with a plan for them. And then I guess my other question was, what data? Are we talking standardized tests? Are you talking tests that teachers give, or?
So you're right, the teacher is the best one. You're absolutely right. The issue is they don't have time to necessarily take and extrapolate the data and then put it into formative assessments that then we can chunk it out. Every 3 weeks we can see how are they moving toward mastery of power standards, if you will. So that's where it's coming from. You're right, the teacher is the one best at that. But if they get somebody to help and come alongside and say, here's how we can pull this out, and we get something set in place, that's the concept that we can build it, and we can continue to use that format on down the line. And then your other question of that was?
Like, what data are you using?
Okay.
Standardized or?
So what we'd like to do is, well, we've got NWA, we've got DIBBLS, we've got MAP, we've got, MAP is NWA. You have state information. I don't personally put as much stock into the information that we get from the state, but we have to use it, right? Because we have to be able to look at it and see where does the state say that we're falling short, and is there a way we can shore that up? The most important data, I think, is what comes out of these smaller, if you will, lower level formative assessments that are created in concert with the teacher. When they look at that data and they say, here are where your weaknesses, and this individual works with the teacher and says, well, this would be a way for you to build that up, and then we use that data. We use our in-house data because that's where we're going to get the most decision, the best information comes from what the teacher sees in the classroom. I think that's where the absolute best data comes from.
I think that the administrators and Jana and Rebecca overwhelmingly, we heard from them. I think the word that kind of stuck out when you said tonight was glue. From at the retreat, they all talked about needing this, that they had all those pieces, but they didn't have time, their staff wasn't having time to put those pieces together so that they could help themselves see where they were headed, what they were doing right, what they weren't doing right, and they asked for just that glue, I guess.
So why do this direction versus staff development or working with other teachers or smaller class sizes where those teachers can focus on their own data and their own kids versus?
We're trying to do some of both by adding with the 4th and the 5th grade. As we can decrease numbers, we've looked at that, and I can see that even the middle school level, there may be potential there to do something with an addition of a teacher at some point at the middle school, but our class averages are around 20. That's a little bit more than what you want at the elementary. But the idea would be it's alleviating some of the additional time it would take the teacher to put this information together. The teacher has it. They don't always know the easiest way to go and access it, when I say it, it's those standardized pieces they have. The other pieces that would be created, they obviously, they have those, you know, based upon their current assignments, but they don't have that next piece of this person's role is to look at those standards. It also would help with the alignment between both Rockville Elementary and Turkey Run Elementary. We've discussed the idea of having some sort of audit conducted as far as what our curriculum looks like. We need kids, when they get to 6th grade, to have had a very similar experience. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. It shouldn't be exactly the same. But if they have had a similar experience, then they're going to walk in the door closer to the same level, and I think this person can help with that. So that's where a lot of that came from.
You had said you discussed these at the monthly union discussion, so I assume that means you've discussed this position with other teachers, and how do they feel, or do you have a good idea on?
So this was one that was questioned. As far as when I say questioned, this was the one that one of the union members said, well, if in 2 years we don't have the money, I could see that one going away, is what the statement was. And I said, I don't necessarily disagree with that statement right now. Right now, I don't disagree with that statement. But just like any of these positions that we're able to add because of the stimulus dollars, if it's something that we find out, wow, we never knew how much we needed that, then we'll have to look at what we're doing and reassess. But right now, I don't necessarily disagree that, sure, if it, on the surface, it's hard to explain what this position is. And so even putting a job description together in words, that page is hard to flesh out exactly what does that look like. And that's why it was so important at the retreat to have those administrators there and talking, because they can articulate better than I can.
Other school corporations have this position?
Yes.
Any other questions?
It was a position that came up today in the webinar as they were discussing different opportunities for funding. There are other schools that are looking at using a data person, or you name it, they're looking at additional ways to help support kids. So.
Okay, does anybody have a motion? I have one.
Can we pull out, I mean, I would like to vote on the teaching positions, but I'm just.
Do you want to
I'm
pull
not-
that
I'm
out
not
and
for
vote
the
on
da-
it separately?
Yeah, if you don't
Okay.
care, yeah.
Can we do that, please?
Sure.
Take out the data specialist curriculum integrator. So let's, a motion on the special education teacher, special education aide, elementary teachers, special, or speech language pathologist, and agricultural teacher first.
So moved.
Brandy's made the motion.
I'll second.
Elise's got a second. All those in favor? 5-0 vote. Okay, and do I hear a motion on the data specialist?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Elise, Gina's the motion, Elise is second. All those in favor? 4. All those no? Brandy? 4-1 vote. Okay. Resolution opposing education savings accounts and voucher expansion.
So currently, there's legislation being presented, and I hate to get too awfully political, and a couple times we've brought up bills at this in meetings, and I don't typically want to go there, but the circumstance is that there are 142 superintendents, based upon the information that I received in an email last Friday. As of last Friday, there are 142 superintendents who state that they are taking to their board and asking for approval on a resolution similar to the one I have before you, or they've already passed one. And essentially what's happening is the bills that are up on the table are those that would include things like education savings accounts and an expansion on vouchers. And so I'm asking the board to approve a resolution against further state funding of charter schools and voucher programs. We can't stop that, obviously. However, the most recent bill that came before the legislature would be damaging to schools, is my belief. And honestly, I can't come up with a single positive for it. There must be a positive somewhere. I've not found it. Neither have those 142 others, to my knowledge. who would represent a wide number of voters, I would think. I'll read the resolution to you prior to asking for approval, but I recognize passage of this resolution will likely not stop the state from what appears to be a disregard for what the majority of constituents and voters desire in regard to education. However, having a resolution makes a statement. And it also communicates a message, so at least people are aware of the things that are being brought before the legislature. And so NCP would, if you approve this, would be formally joining the voice of reason, in my mind, in regard to what appears to be a misuse of taxpayer dollars. Let me read the resolution to you, and then I'd be happy to hear any discussion on it. Here we go. Whereas the Indiana General Assembly during its 2021 legislative session is considering House Bill 1005, Senate Bill 413, and other bills that establish education savings accounts and expand vouchers, whereas the board has determined that the Indiana General Assembly should not enact education savings accounts or expand vouchers and should continue to promote and fully invest in Indiana public schools. More specifically, to further the public good, public funds should be invested in improving the schools designed to serve all children and to aid in improving Indiana public school teachers' salaries as recommended by the Governor's Teacher Compensation Commission in its report of December 14, 2020. Indiana already has school choice in the form of open enrollment, charter schools, enrollment in virtual online schools, and the Choice Scholarship Program. Public schools are required to operate in an open, transparent way with all the expenditures and decision-making. Non-public schools are not held to that same public standard. Legislators should reduce the overregulation of state and federal bureaucracy that hinders the ability of local schools to innovate and be responsive to parent and community needs. Whereas the costs of education savings accounts and school vouchers are covered exclusively by our state school tuition support fund, further providing fewer public dollars to fund our public schools and increase teacher salaries. Whereas the board believes that public schools provide a strong educational environment for Indiana's children and education savings accounts. If enacted and expanded, school vouchers would put this environment at risk by directing resources away from those schools to non-public schools and/or home schools that are not subject to the same rigorous scrutiny for their use of taxpayer resources. If you choose to approve this, it then says, now therefore be it resolved, the school board of the North Central Park Community School Corporation opposes the passage and signing of House Bill 1005, Senate Bill 413, or any other current bill expanding vouchers and/or creating education savings accounts. A couple talking points with all that said, because I wanted to get all that on the record at least.
Where is this in the committee, the crawl through the legislature, I guess?
It's likely going to be, it's already passed the committees, right? It's likely going to be enacted. It's very likely that it's going to be enacted. This is more, it's a statement, I guess, of, what do I want to say? Not a moral statement, it's a statement of position. It's a position statement of the board to say, we recognize that our tax dollars should go to schools that live under the same requirements and have the same accountability standards as any other school, and not those that get different treatment. The simplest explanation that I found on this had to do with if a taxpayer gives $100 to education, the voucher or private school program gets $38, according 38 of the 100, okay? Public school would receive 62 of that 100. Okay, so again, kids at the private school, $38 out of the 100. Kids at the public school, $62 out of the 100. But the $62 out of 100 is split between 96 kids, because 96% of the kids in our state go to public schools. So that 62 is split between 96 kids, and the 38 split between 4 kids, because 4% of our kids go to voucher charter schools. It's totally out of line, and that's the simplest way. It helps me immensely to look at it that way. You know, 96% of the kids are in public schools. Divided out, that would be 65 cents per kid, as opposed to $10 per kid. Do you have any questions? on
Any
approving the
questions?
resolution.
No, I appreciate you doing it. I think it's a good thing. I don't think you're right. I don't think it's gonna change the outcome, but I think it's important that we recognize that it will be detrimental. And I think for us, we don't have a lot of private schools in our area, but the way they do the funding, I think it's important for people to understand that even though we don't have a lot in our community, we're still affected, because everything goes to the state. The vouchers come right off the top, and now the public schools are splitting that now smaller pot. And so, yes, we don't have it in our area, but it does still impact our finances.
Right.
Can we do more? I know you said you don't want to get political, and writing this letter is probably,
But I did. Yeah,
Um,
sorry. Yeah.
we post all over Facebook and stuff. All I'm thinking about, I do a lot of hunting, and there's a lot of wetlands that get changed, and I listen to these various radio shows, and they say, Indiana, this is the phone number for your house, your representative, call them. And I know people, when I lived downtown Indianapolis, that young adults that worked for the State House, and they definitely do field these calls, and then they report that to the people. Like, it's not all for nothing. And I know there's a lot of hunting stuff that when it gets called out, like on our podcast that I listen to, this Meteor podcast, it's like, call your state representative, let them know how you feel, because it's not always Republican or Democrat.
Right.
Because if one person's super conservative, they might not feel the same way as all the other conservatives or something like that. So I don't know if we can do more than just putting out this statement. I don't know if is it improper to put it on the school Facebook page? Hey, this is the representatives in this area. This is what the school board feels. If you, Mr. Community Person, feels strongly enough, give them a call and let them know how you feel. And that's if we're allowed to do that, I'd say it's something we could do. But if it's not something we've never done and something that's probably not allowed to be done, maybe we shouldn't. So.
I get those emails from the IAPSS, the Superintendent Association, all the time, right? I don't think there's an issue with it going on the school page if it's approached in a nonpartisan and a manner that just lays the facts out. That here are your state representatives. Here's what would happen if said bills pass. If you feel strongly about that, here's some names you could contact. I don't see
Yeah,
a
if you
problem
support the
with it.
bill, you can contact them.
Sure.
Can you
Sure.
even say that the school board passed a resolution?
Yes.
I mean,
And then that's the statement that we can use, absolutely.
Any other comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Brandy made the motion.
I'll second.
Zach second. All those in favor? I vote. Miscellaneous?
Okay, we've just got a few items. We've already
So we're
heard,
back to the
sorry.
vaccination clinic.
Yep. Yeah, we've already heard from Chris O'Brien earlier about a potential vaccination clinic up at the ELC room. This is the most likely location. I think it's great, but it's not my room, right? So I would ask for the board to consider approving that request. I do believe it would be appropriate to use the facility use forms and fees that are already in place. If you choose to waive that, that's absolutely up to the board. But I think it's fair to do that. That would come from likely their stimulus dollars as well. Now, I don't know that, but I would imagine that's where that would come from if we wanted to charge the $25 fee, and it's $10 an hour after that for the ELC room. $25 initial, and then $10 an hour. And they'd then fill
Does
out
that
the facility
cover-
use forms.
Does that money cover janitors or? what
It
is
wouldn't quite cover all of our services, no. But that's what the current facility use form says, and so that's what,
So if they're doing a Monday, I mean, they're looking at doing 5 days a week. That could get pretty costly for them.
would it be better if we just asked them to reimburse our cost?
We don't
Would-
even know what our cost would
Well,
be to.
yeah, and I know we wouldn't know that, but that to me would be a fairer, more equal way to do it.
We could determine the fee in arrears if you, once we're past it, if you wanted
Do we have
to.
any idea what the fairgrounds is charging them right now?
I don't know that number. It's for the good of the community. I think it's a great activity. It's not like we're looking to make money off of that for the school corporation. At the same time, there are some fixed costs that will come with it. I don't think that it's going to make a large mess necessarily from the custodian point of view, but I also don't know. I've never run one of those.
They really do a good, and like the vaccines themselves, like they'll have sharps containers, like they'll have to dispose of that. So it'll be the trash of gloves, paper towel, hand washing, that sort of stuff. So it's not like this crazy,
lot.
horrible, messy.
The janitors will already be there, correct? For the summer
Yes.
doing.
Yeah, pending vacations.
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking about
Yeah.
one room,
I think-
basically.
Right.
So it sounds like maybe you might want to
I
consider
think
waiving.
I think it's a great idea. I think we just come up with like a flat daily fee and not do the event and per
I do agree,
hour.
trying to figure out what the fairgrounds charged, I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I mean, say comparable to whatever the fairgrounds is
And
charging.
the flat fee, basically, you can figure out what you're going to have in janitor's expenses, because that's really the only expense we'll have, I would assume.
They're
However,
looking at
we're-
starting May 28th. So if you're okay with approving the use, then I can come back with a number if you want to do that in two parts.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be fine with them having it. I would like to, waive like the bare minimum of just if it covers our costs and then nothing more, I think.
Okay,
Because it
do I
really
have a-
is a good service to have in our community. We have people who don't have to drive very far to be able to get their vaccine. And so if we can play a part in being able to do that, I think I would be happy with that.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
And are we including in the motion to come back with the amount, or what do you want to make the motion?
Just that they're,
Just the approval of the
approval
space
of
at this
the
time?
space.
Okay.
And that way we'll get more information. I'm sure you'll have plenty of information in a month from Chris.
Okay. So Elise made the motion, and Brandy seconded it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All those in favor? 5-0. Field trip approval.
Yeah, Mr. Cooch would like to take the auto tech students to Covington to use an alignment rack that they have. This field trip would take place on April 1st, last for the duration of the school day. I'd recommend that the board approve this trip. It's on page B in your miscellaneous packet there. Or the second page of your miscellaneous packet. It's 13 students.
And he's going to drive the minibus?
That's my understanding.
Any questions, comments? Do I hear a motion?
so moved.
Gina made the motion.
A second.
Zach second. All those in favor? 5-0. Job descriptions?
Yeah, the last thing on miscellaneous business, I've included some drafts of job descriptions here, and we've already talked a little bit about this. But we have some, we could do this with all of our positions, to be quite honest. It's time to update some job descriptions, but similar to the policies and guidelines, this is a long process. Knowing that we have a couple newer positions or potentially newer positions, I thought that would be a good place to start with the reading. As much as anything, I would present this to you, not asking for any approval right now. If there's additional discussion on it that you want to provide to me, great. If you want to wait and save that for the next meeting, I would understand that as well. really for your information at this time.
Any comments, questions? So do you guys want to approve this, or do you want to wait until he presents it later?
I think we need to wait.
Okay with that?
I didn't hear you.
She said,
I think we need to wait.
Yeah, okay, I agree.
yeah. Okay, all right.
Okay, that's great. Yep, that ends the miscellaneous business.
Okay, anything else?
Superintendent's report.
Not in miscellaneous. I do have some superintendent's report info
Right.
here.
So superintendent's report, and then we'll have, is there any comments from the public? That looks like there's lots.
At just the few things that I've got for the superintendent's report. First, summer school numbers. I just wanted to briefly touch base on summer school. Just today, between Turkey Run and Rockville Elementary, these are the numbers right now that are being recommended by the teachers. These may change, but kindergarten, 23 students. First grade, 23 students. Second grade, 14 students. Third grade, 14 students. Fourth grade, 19 students. And fifth grade, 14 students. So these are students that the teachers are saying need some additional assistance, and they need that opportunity to come to school. We've also said if a student wants to come or a parent wants to send their student to summer school, absolutely. Let's find a way and let's get a teacher in there. Again, stimulus dollars can help us here shore up some positions, but the state has summer school dollars where if you have 15 students per class, that's why it's so important to get to these numbers. If we have 15 per class, we can reimburse for one teacher for every 15 students. So that's important. That's why I provide those numbers to you right now. After break, I'm going to sit down and have additional conversations with Mrs. Benjamin, with Mrs. Robinson, everybody that we need to get on board with what summer school looks like. We do have a teacher for every grade level that's indicated interest. So that's very encouraging. And as I'd mentioned before, we're going to look for, are there other opportunities out there in the community that, you know, at the end of the school day, which may run from 8 till 12, and after a lunch, will students be able to go see a movie? Would students be able to go to the park? Is the pool going to be open? We don't know what summer looks like yet in a lot of ways, so some of that's up in there. But I'd love to find some things that kids would get excited about going to after school. And if there's a way to keep them involved there, I'm all for it. That's just the update on summer school. The other thing, you know, it's exciting times here. We've got regional champs in a boys basketball team, and those guys are hungry for more. And if you saw the game the other night, last Saturday, it was one of the best high school basketball games I've seen. I mean, it was fantastic. The dance team were third at the state. That's amazing. That's fantastic. The NJHS ceremony pulled it off up at the middle school. You know, there was a time where we didn't know if we could put enough people in a room to do something like that. Not only that, it was live streamed. The Penny Wars over at Rockville Elementary, which I've been at other schools and I've seen Penny Wars, and sometimes they make $12, okay? They raised $4,732.32. That's amazing. That's community, right? Donating to kids. FFA competitions are back on. They've been to the Quiz Bowl. The music, arts, and drama this last weekend, Friday and Sunday, Friday night and Sunday afternoon. There were over 400 pieces of artwork out here in the hallways in the high school. Teachers donated time. We had our music teacher was involved in the small orchestra, if you will, that was playing between sets of a play. And I mean, they just tied it all together. And these are not the only things that are going on, right? So there are a lot of really great things going on right now. And I just kind of wanted to highlight those, right? I just kind of wanted to highlight those in my report. And we've made it to spring break here, and we didn't know what it would look like back in January. The email I sent out to administrators with just how much I appreciate, you know, all the hard work that they've done, and obviously we can say the same thing for all the teachers. We didn't know we'd be able to do it this well, and we're not perfect, obviously, but I'm very proud of all these things and look forward to more. That's it for my superintendent's report.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Okay.
Mark does.
Oh, he does? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it would likely be classified as administration because of being over multiple. But here's the problem with that. It's so gray because I've specifically said in the job description that this person will have no supervisory role, right? So it's more quasi-administrative than it is anything. While they would have to, I would be their supervisor, right? That's mainly because they're in so many locations. At the same time, I don't want them evaluating teachers. That's not their role at all. They would come alongside the teacher and help in whatever fashion possible.
So in my opinion, the curriculum integrator is the important part of that job. Because as we look at changes in every part of the world, just like vocational versus regular educational preparatory for college, that's not for everybody, and we're looking at ways that our kids can be ready for life. Anybody else? Future meeting dates. Next regularly scheduled meeting will be held April 21st at 6 p.m. in the cafetorium here. And with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you. If you would, please turn your mics off. Thank you.